We'll start off with the first item on the list, public input. Do we have anybody, Anthony, that's on that would like to speak tonight?
If there's anybody in the public column who would like to participate, please click on the raised hand, or if you're calling on the line, you could dial *9. And as of now, we have no one with their hands raised.
Okay. Did any council person receive any emails, concerns, phone calls that they would like to add to the record for public participation or input? All right. Neither did I. So seeing none, I will now close public input and move on to item 1 of new business. Item 1, approve the minutes of the Public Works Committee meeting of Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. Would anybody like to move the item? Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Do we have any corrections, additions, changes? Seeing none, I don't have any either. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Abstentions?
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain.
I abstain as well.
Okay. And any opposed? No. Okay. Item number 2. Discuss and vote to schedule a public hearing to increase the fee for proposed adjustments to the public works rate and fees to be set by the Department of Operations and Public Works fee schedule as per attached. The public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 at 7 p.m. by video conference, teleconference. Would anybody like to move this item? Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Oh, sorry, Mr. Livingston. My apologies. All right, who do we have with us tonight that can speak on that? Anthony?
Hey, George. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes. So the this proposed increase for fees only pertains to 2 divisions within Public Works. The first is engineering, and this proposal is to increase fees for our mapping, GIS mapping, the reproduction, the copying, the printing, any type of deliverable that we have to provide to the public that requests such. Electronic copies, I do not believe are, actually, yes, we do charge for shape files, which are electronic files, but also for paper copies. So this proposal, again, is to increase the fees for reproduction for the engineering department, specifically for mapping, record mapping, which could be utilities, street names, roadways, etc. And then the other division that is proposing the increase is operations, specifically their special event fees, and then that pertains to the traffic control devices, traffic drums, barrels, cones. Oftentimes we loan out the barrels and cones and they don't come back in the same condition. Sometimes they don't come back at all. So we're trying to align the cost of other municipalities that we've looked at in the surrounding area for their reproduction fees, including Westchester County, and also for traffic control devices such as the barrels and the drums. Just looking at what we pay for it versus what was previously in the fees. Fees should be looked at once every few years to make sure that your adjustment is on par with industry standards and current pricing. And that's just what we're doing here. So again, it's just engineering and operations. On the engineering, it's just the reproduction fees for mapping, record utility mapping, and other types of mapping. And on the operations, it is just for the drums, cones, and barrels associated when we loan out those devices for special events like the Mice Festival, Oyster Fest, etc.
So, Mr. Carr, so what are the current fees for these things?
The difference is very small, Tom. I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me now, but it's on our website. I believe that we have, for instance, before was a $75 per hour with a $30 minimum on those shape files. I think the GIS print was about $10 and the GIS print was about $25. The barrels was, I believe, $75 per unit. Yeah. And I don't remember what was the refundable deposit. What we did, the math was based on how many they get it. So usually a minimum of 15, 20 that they get. So this is really the replacement cost in case we lose. Usually the minimum that we deliver is 15. So it's not much of an increase. It's just that we have to set staff apart to do that. And sometimes takes a long time. And if we do not charge, a lot of people keep asking for things that they may not even really need it or use. So also the last time that we made a change was in 2009.
Gotcha. So on the barricades and barrels, so we don't charge, this is just a deposit, right? We don't even charge them for them?
Well, yeah, they deposit, that's correct. And then when they return, they get the money back. Only when they ended up damaged one or one is missing, then we
Right.
charge.
They don't return them sometimes in the same condition, that they're dented or pieces are missing, or the bottom of the drums have a rubber foot, a rubber base. Sometimes the bases go missing.
So I'm just curious. I mean, this is fine, but I'm curious, how come we don't charge, I mean, for the time to put those out for some of these events? I'm not saying we should, I'm just curious about the thought process.
Well, I think one school of thought is in the spirit of collaboration and stewardship, that where they're paying for the material, although it's a deposit, right? It's more of a loan. I guess it's more of a stewardship and a collaboration with a lot of these entities that are not necessarily city entities, but doing work in the city and attracting tourism and infusing the businesses. It's more of a stewardship. I mean, it's the way it's been done. I've looked at that too with Vanessa and Chris.
It makes sense. I mean, they're nonprofits for the most part, and it's to deal with traffic. I understand. I'm just curious about thinking it through.
But you're right, though. I mean, it does take time to get the truck out, to preload, drop them off. I mean, you're talking maybe from the time they get from the shop from the garage to anywhere in Norwalk and back, it's an hour, right? To leave it off, and they got to go back and pick it up. Maybe that's only half an hour. So yeah, I mean, there's some operating budget there that's not currently accounted for.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Mr.
You're
Keegan.
Kind of on the same point as Mr. Livingston, Chief Carter, how about on a weekend? If they would need these materials brought to a particular site on a weekend, would we charge them then?
Usually we drop it on Fridays.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We
before the
don't
weekend.
work overtime because to drop barrels.
They left before COB on Friday. Yes.
And just to answer the question, Tom, Anthony's absolutely correct. One of the reasons, as far as I know, and again, it could be something that gets looked at in the future, but we weren't charging for these because most of the times they're used for nonprofits. And we figured they already pay for the emergency services, the additional security services. This is just one more way to help out, as Anthony put it, in a good stewardship.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I know when it came up in the past, that was the primary reason, because we were helping out nonprofits.
Okay, that makes
But
sense.
again, this is always something that can be looked into in the future if need be. Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Theodorides, I lost you.
Oh, I raised my hand, yes.
Okay, thank you, it's unanimous. Item number 3, technical correction of the Common Council action of July 13, 2021, item 7B3, to add account number noted designated for Attain Project DPW 2021-2 material testing. And 3A, I'll add to it, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Attain for Project DPW 2021-2 material testing for a period of 1 year, billable on a unit price basis for a sum not to exceed $30,000, with an option to extend for 2 additional terms of 1 year, each accounts noted. Who would like to move the item? Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anthony, will you be just bringing us up to speed on this and the additional account being added? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that, rookie mistake. This contract was previously approved Again, this correction is just the underlying account, which if you look at the 5th digit in 6030, that is a capital account associated with recreation and parks. So we want the ability, again, to utilize another recreation and parks capital project to incur such testing when and if needed. And again, Vanessa could add to this, but the material testing that's included in that contract, it could be concrete testing, asphalt testing, environmental testing of subsurface and soils. So the vendor does provide a lot of concrete strength testing, all different types of testing available for us. Again, most of these are public works capital projects, with the exception of the last 3 on the right column, but more so the new one that's underscored and underlined. That is another capital account for recreation and parks project. We just want the flexibility to use that for future rec and parks projects. Vanessa, if there's anything that you want to add into.
Yeah, the specific project that we add on is for Freeze Park.
Yes.
We're gonna change the railings there, so we just want to make sure the depth of the anchor there. So it's good that we can use this contract and get material testing to do. It will be the cheapest way, and we can know in advance if there are any surprises. So that's why we add this.
Gotcha. Okay, any questions from any members of the committee? All right, seeing none, I'll put it to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And I see Mr. Theodorides' hand go up. Seems unanimous. All right, thank you very much. On to item number 4, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute the First Amendment to the April 13, 2021 agreement between the City of Norwalk and the Grasso Companies, LLC for project PM 2021-1 pavement management programs for an amount not to exceed $1 million, accounts noted. Who would like to move that item? Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Who's gonna explain this one to us?
And Mr. Chairman, I can start off with it. So just to give a little bit of background, again, the paving contract previously approved. This is an amendment, meaning it's not to be confused with an extension of the contract. We're not extending the contractor any more than the contractor who won the bid for the same scope. What this contract is for is the way our paving program is managed and the way that our bid is structured. We have what's called a base bid, so that we have basically a group A, right, of roads that we bid out for the paving contract, annual paving contract. And then we have a group B, basically, and those are called amendment streets. So the goal is to complete all of the group A streets, or the base bid streets, with the caveat, which is clearly noted all over the project specifications, that the city basically reserves the right at any time to add a number of amendment streets. We'll call them again Group B. If either all the base streets get finished, so if all the Group A streets get finished, or for some reason, some of the Group A streets can't be done and we have to move on, and we have to supplement and swap out or provide additional streets to keep the contractor mobilized and keep them here in Norwalk and keep them gainfully employed. Again, and sometimes we don't finish or we don't get to some of these base scope streets because either Eversource has a project planned that's taken longer than expected. We started doing some work and realized that we did a storm sewer inspection and the storm sewer needs to be replaced. So we'll drop down the list. And if we have to keep scrolling, it's almost like a waiting list. If we keep going down the roads in the A list or the base scope, and we can't supplement enough, then we'll start pulling from the amendment streets. The amendment streets are also streets that are ready to be rehabilitated. They qualify. They typically don't have a highly rated pavement condition index, which is a grade basically from 1 to 100 for pavement, 100 being new, 1 being completely failed. So those are all tied into our paving management program. So we're not just necessarily pulling roads out that are in very good shape. They're in as equally bad shape as the base scope streets, but the base scope streets or the Group A streets were scheduled to go first or to be rehabilitated first prior to the amendment streets. So most years we get the base streets done. Other years we include the amendment streets. Like this year, for example, Woodward Avenue from Burritt to Neptune, that was an amendment street that that we completed. There is Fort Point Street and South Smith Street. It made sense to do both of those streets at the same time. They just recently underwent First Taxing District water main improvements, Eversource gas main improvements. I'm sure a lot of you have driven down to the transfer station, the Yardway site and the operations center, and it was a mess down there. It's like, it was a war zone. Now, if you haven't driven over it yet, it's a nice newly milled and paved surface. Roy Eaton Avenue from McKinley to the private entrance, that's an amendment street that we're going to be working on very shortly, in the near future. To Tome Street, those are just a few examples of the amendment street. So again, it's basically an alternate list that the roads are ready to go, and we can add them at any time. And the contractor, the way our contract is structured too, it's all unit price. So it's not like they give us a price for road A, for road B, for road C. All contractors see the base bid, they see the amendment streets, and they could all put their unit prices in accordingly. Yes.
Well, based upon what you said, I mean, if the contractor doesn't see the names of the streets, wouldn't it be easier for you guys forget the streets and just just tell them what to do and not have to come back to us for an amendment? So if you know, like 50 miles, I know what the number is, 20 miles.
Yeah, no, he does. They do see the streets in the contract. They see the base scope and they see the amendment. They see the same list. All bidders see the group A and the group B. They all equally see the streets. And the problem is, Tom, in White Plains, they did that. It was an anytime, anywhere contract for paving. Before I joined them, they didn't actually have a paving list. So what would happen is the contractors would not know if they have to set up and mobilize and start setting up traffic control in the middle of downtown White Plains, or if they're going to go the next week to the outside suburban part of White Plains. And it lent a lot of uncertainty, and it actually inflated bid prices, because the contractor said, I'm not going to take a risk. If I have to work downtown for 2 weeks and I don't know about it, I got to make this worth my while. So them not knowing where they're going and not having a list creates a big problem, and you end up paving a lot less streets because they don't know, the roadway width, where they're going to mobilize, where they're going to stage. They look at streets together too, and they try to stay in generally the same area. Sometimes they have to hop around. But if you notice, we did Fort Point and Smith Street together. That made sense. So yeah,
I get that. I'm just trying to figure out how to save you guys work, and save us doing the amendment. If you told them, the beginning of each year, this is what you're going to do, then you wouldn't. But it would just give you
there
more.
is also the capital money related to it, Tom. So usually when we issue the base bid, we do the contract base, because we bid this out around the winter, around January. Usually we put the bid out. So we bid the base bid on the amount of money that we have for that year until June. By then, we do not know exactly how much more money will be appropriated to the program that will start as July 1st. So what we do, we put the amendment list there based on the numbers that we request and hoping that will happen. And then we usually come for the amendment. It's very common after July when that money is in place, and then we can move those streets over. I agree with you. We have to do the work twice, but we believe that this way it can be more economical. If we can disclose the list, we can get a more better price for the money, because there are some streets that they would be willing to do and they will go for the package. And then the only problem that we have to do is give more work for you guys and then to legal to do another contract for them.
Yeah, I was trying to save you guys work and give you more flexibility, but if you say that doesn't work, okay.
We can try. We can this year when we put it out to bid again. We have to see, because actually we have the option to extend this contract also. So the last time that we did the paving, we put an option for extension for 2 more years. So we're going to make a decision at the end of the construction season if we're going to come back to extend for another year, as was spec on the bid, or if we're going to put it out for bid totally. And if we do that, we're definitely going to take in consideration if we can minimize the amendment.
Are you happy with Grasso?
Yes, we are. We have, I think that the good thing about them is that even when we decide last minute to do a couple of things, they're very flexible about it. I think they never give us a hard time about changing things. I think this is definitely a plus with them. The quality of the work is there. One thing that we are seeing that is happening all over, there is the material, not for paving, but some of the small work that they need to do on drainage, the material is not there because of COVID. And sometimes now the crew also has to be in quarantine if they got sick. But I believe this is not only a Grasso problem. We can see all over the board that is happening. But overall, yes.
And my last question, sorry, is just my perpetual question about Grasso. They're not Norwalk anymore, are they?
No, they're
Okay.
not. They're in Monroe.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'm just going to throw out there also, Tom, I did speak to Stephen about it, and they don't have any permit issues, problems, or past due taxes or anything like that either. So they've definitely stepped up their game and resolved a lot of the issues we used to see with them in the past.
Great, thanks for doing that.
So not seeing any other hands. All in favor? And I see George Theodore's put his hand up, so it seems unanimous. Item number 5, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Willing, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and Olmsted Tree and Shrub Care Company, LLC, for the supply and planting of trees and shrubs for an amount not to exceed $130,000 per year. The agreement is for a period of 3 years with an option to extend for 2 additional terms of 1 year each. Accounts noted. Okay, who would like to move this item? Thank you, Mr. Livingston.
And Mr. Chairman, so this is our annual tree contract that's expended using our capital funding. And if you note the 3 account numbers below, the 4021 is engineering, and that capital amount is the $65,000 that we receive each year. The second account is 6030. That's a recreation and parks account. And then the bottom account, the 4120, is TMP. So again, the division of the money, the allocation is TMP is $15,000, recreation and parks is $50,000, and engineering is $65,000. We've used Olmsted before. We've been very pleased with their work experience. There was a very rigorous selection panel. The memos in the back detailing the specifics. But again, this is just to complete our annual tree planting under our various capital improvement programs for the various departments. Yes, Tom.
One question. This contract, is it exclusive? So by that, I mean, if we wanted to plant more trees, would we have to use them, or could we use somebody else if it, get a grant or something?
Well, we could use somebody else, but the thing is, there would be, I guess you could have two contracts in theory.
Yeah.
Or you could use another vendor if you wanted to, if the procurement guidelines, if it was such that it was under a certain amount and you wanted to purchase a few trees with just a purchase order. Yeah, you can do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'm not saying we would necessarily
No,
do
right,
that.
right. But no, we're not locked into solely using Olmsted for all the tree purchases. We could even have, if we're planting a lot of trees, and let's say we receive more grant money or next capital funding, we increase it, and maybe we have two contractors at the same time, because obviously one will be only has so many resources. So
Gotcha.
If we did get an increase, we could absolutely do that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Keegan. You're muted.
What else is new, right, George? This contract is for planting and purchasing only. This is not for like tree trimming and pruning and
Correct.
things as well, is it?
Correct. It's just under the capital improvement program. Correct, Mr. Keegan. Only planting, watering, furnish and installing new tree plantings and shrubs.
Does anyone know about how many trees we'll be able to plant with this kind of funding?
Yes. So on average, a good rule of thumb is to furnish, install, and water a 3.5 inch caliber, so circumference of a tree, is generally about 1,000 to $1,000 to $1,250 per tree. So if you take, just make it round, $130,000 divided by 1,000, assuming you do all trees and no shrubs, it's about 130 street trees or trees inside public property, like some of the parks facilities.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Young.
So do you have an identified area of where these trees are going to be planted or proposed to be planted?
We do have some areas that I know engineering, Vanessa, Paul Sonic, we're also working with Jessica Casey's group and TMP and working. I know there's some areas in the MLK corridor. There's several parks, I think on Meadow Park. There's several parks that we've identified that need additional plantings. We're working with Ken Hughes. So yeah, we're starting that process now. Engineering has their list, Recreation and Parks has their list, and TMP and Economic Development are generating their list. And we're trying to divvy up exactly where the trees are gonna go. Because again, it is $130,000, but it's only 130 trees. So we have to be a bit selective and smart as to where we place the trees.
Yeah. And I ask because, I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about planting trees over the past few years. And I think, this is a good start, but I think we've been doing this for a while and we're going to reach a number, right?
Right.
And how, and what does that look like and when? So if we're looking at, what did you say, 100 trees?
About 130, take the 130,000 divided by 100.
Within the next year or so? So, I mean, that's a significant number of trees, right?
Right, and that doesn't include some of the trees that are in Recreation and Parks operating budget.
Right.
They actually have a tree planting line item in their operating budget. And the number escapes me at the moment, but this is just for capital. But there are some operating budget. There's some operating budget allocated for tree plantings too under Recreation and Parks.
But we do also lose a lot of trees too, remember? So
I think too, then that goes to the other issue of how are we losing trees or why are we losing them? And then what are the ways that we can replace them, particularly if we're losing them due to development. So we've got to be creative in how we replace trees, right? Or the green infrastructure. And maybe that's something else we need to look at.
Agreed. But yeah, that's absolutely it. And that's why we have to work with the other departments too, to figure out, where's the best strategic place along certain corridors to put trees. I know there was prior studies done that I know the tree advisory committee has. Paul Sotnick has a lot of these studies too. Some of the work has been completed, some hasn't, but that's why we've had started discussions with Jessica's group and basically merging both efforts.
Hey, Anthony or Paul, whoever wants to answer this, along with this contract, it doesn't only include purchasing and planting, but also the maintaining of the trees, correct? They are warranted and they are responsible. Could you just share that with the committee so they know?
Go ahead, Paul.
That is correct. With this, it's the procurement of the materials, the installation of the trees, as well as the watering and the guarantee for 2 years. So if a tree that they've planted under this contract dies for any reason within that 2-year period, Olmsted would be responsible for replacing it at their cost and no other additional cost to the city. And they are also responsible for the watering too. And that's one of the reasons that we've put the RFP together the way we did, as we've done in past years too, is because it does include all of the watering, where some of the other contractors don't necessarily do the watering. It would be an additional cost.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any other questions, Mr. Livingston?
yeah, I just want to make one additional comment to invite everybody to come to the ordinance committee later this month when we're going to talk about the new tree ordinance we've been working on with Chris Torrey and Chief Carr and everyone else. So I think, Darlene, to your point, I mean, it's clearly on our agenda, on that committee's agenda, and I know a lot of people in the council feel the same way. So come and make your feelings known.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Monique, let the record show that Mr. Langella joined us at about 7:25 p.m. All right, seems unanimous. Item number 6. This item has Darren's name all over it. Thanks, Darren. A lot of whereas. All right, item number 6. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents related to the state project 102-364 West Avenue Traffic Adaptive Signal Project. Whereas the city of Norwalk has initiated a project to upgrade traffic signals on a portion of West Avenue and Belden Avenue to traffic adaptive signals, and whereas the city of Norwalk has published a news release, mailed a copy of the news release to required officials and agencies, and mailed a notification letter to abutting property owners announcing the proposed transportation safety project known as State Project 102-364 West Avenue Traffic Adaptive Signal Project, and whereas the construction phase will be funded utilizing 90% federal funds and 10% municipal funds, and whereas a 30-day public comment period is provided to allow interested parties to voice their concerns, and whereas no concerns have been raised by the residents or from the public during the comment period. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Norwalk, find that State Project 102-364 West Avenue Traffic Adaptive Signal Project is in the best interest of the city of Norwalk and will provide for the convenience and safety of the traveling public. Oof.
You
Who would
repeat
like to
that?
move item?
I can't claim that handiwork. I think that might be Mr. Yeosock moonlighting as an attorney.
Somebody had a lot of whereas on their computer.
That was a
All
good
right,
guess,
who
though.
would like to move this item? Okay, thank you, Mr. Keegan. But Tom's got it tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Chief, are you taking this one as well, or are we passing this on to Vanessa? Who gets the fun of explaining?
I believe Vanessa, is Mr. Yeosock on the line?
Yes, he is, so he can explain to us.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Mr. Yeosock.
Hi, Chairman. Basically, what this is a few, about 2 years ago, we received a safety grant to improve the signals on West Avenue, turn them to adaptive. This is from Butler Street North to including Belden Avenue. As part of the process, we have to reach out to the public. We had a public mailing on this, but they didn't require a public informational meeting on this project because it was minor in scope. So we mailed it to all the abutting residents and everybody in that area, asking if they had any comments on the project. We didn't receive any comments back. So the next step is to have the council, authorize this project to move forward. And that's the reason for the resolution. And once the state receives this, they already have the semi-final design plans. They're reviewing them now. So they'll, this is one of the last things to do to, authorize us to go to bid on this in the near future.
Mike, can you explain a little bit the adaptive system? I know we've used it throughout the city before, and it's supposed to help alleviate traffic with recognizing and picking up on traffic patterns. Is that correct?
That's correct. Right now it's in place in front of the mall. We will also be changing the rest of the signals in South Norwalk on Martin Luther King and South and North Main Street to adaptive as part of the Walk Bridge project. That'll probably be later this year or early next year, and this will complete that whole corridor. So the whole west side of the river will basically run as adaptive, and East Avenue will follow in a future project as part of the Walk Bridge, the East Avenue corridor.
Great. Mr. Keegan.
Yeah, hi. My question is related to the price tag on this. It says we're going to be on the hook for 10%, but it doesn't say 10% of what.
Yeah, the cost for this work is around $370,000. So we're basically our share is about $37,000.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Manny Langella, aye.
Okay, seems unanimous. Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Item number 7, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an amendment to the September 8, 2020 agreement between the city of Norwalk and Ahmed Kirby LLC for project number 4048 on-call surveying services. The amendment is to extend the agreement for a period of 1 year at a sum not to exceed $150,000 with an option to extend for one additional term for 1 year. Accounts noted. Who would like to move the item? Thank you, Mr. Langella.
Mr. Chairman, this on-call contract was previously approved by Public Works Committee and the council. And again, this is only an amendment to extend to the agreement for 1 year for $150,000. And then we have the option to extend for the second additional year. We've been using, and Vanessa could speak a bit more to this too. We've been using Ahmed Kirby for a bit. I was well aware of them. I know Vanessa prior to them coming on board. They're a very good company. They've done solid work. They're timely, very, very good quality, very responsive to our needs. Since our prior in-house land surveyor, Greg Cogan, had retired, he was a licensed land surveyor, so he could do some of the surveying work and stamp off and seal drawings and maps like easements that a non-licensed surveyor cannot do in the states of New York and Connecticut and many other states in the country. So in the absence of having an on-call land surveyor and with the additional workload, we're respectfully requesting the contract is amended for the additional year for $150,000. And again, these projects could be maps. They could be, if we need to do drainage improvements, we need to send the surveyor out prior. Improvements, let's say Calf Pasture Beach, parking lot, they are engineers and surveyors, but we use them really for the surveying portion of their scope.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Young.
So can I ask how many, on average, how many jobs have they gone out on? Do you know, Anthony, this year or in the prior year?
I would say at least 7.
Yeah, I was going to say 8,
Six.
7 or 8. Yeah.
We have been using them a lot. It has been great. The good thing about having them is that we have them free staff to focus on other things. And again, we're trying to really maximize our paving program. And using them, we can send them to the streets that we're planning to do about 2 years from now. We can survey those streets. We can also try to see if there are any conflicts with utilities. We use them also when we did some test pits, so they can be there and mark on the drawings exactly where the utilities. We just did that for the Center Avenue, Plymouth area. And then we know exactly what needs to get moved and what kind of drainage we need to put in. Besides that, the other day, legal also needs that we kind of draft a map for an easement. They are the ones that are working on it. And the good thing about it is that they are very responsive. They are happy to have this contract with the city. So as soon as we call them and said, this is for us a priority, we need a couple of weeks, they usually can fit us in. With the industry being very busy now, if to have a surveyor that we do not have a contract available, they're going to put us on the list and probably will take around a month until they can come and help us. So I highly recommend this extension. I also want to make a note that we increase a little bit the value. Last year was $120,000. This year we are around 20% more because we definitely see the amount of work that we can provide to them. Plus, again, we're helping other departments. So it's not only engineering. TMP needed them for one little small work and we use them. Recs and Parks with all their capital projects, they just did the whole survey of Calf Pasture Beach. So that's why we ended up increasing a little bit the value for this year.
Vanessa or Anthony, are we currently in the process of looking to replace the surveying and the surveyor we had in-house?
No, now that we have our staff completed. He ended up, he was an associate engineer. So we have those associate engineer positions already filled by civil engineers, not by surveyors.
I see. Okay. Any other questions from the committee?
So I just want to know, so how many hours does that total up to be on average? Are we looking at 40 hours total, or, what does that look like?
It depends on the project, Darlene. I'll be honest, I don't have the breakdown per project here, but they are extremely reasonable on their price. And also the good thing about it is, if you see on the backup, they are also not changing any of their hourly rates for this extension. So they're gonna continue charge us based on what they charged us last year when they submit the bid. So they're keeping the same rates. Each project, it changes. So sometimes, and they have this very new equipment that it actually scans the roads. So that's how they do the survey. So the time that they are on site is much less, because they can, for instance, do Center Avenue, the whole survey in a couple of hours. So one man in 2 hours can survey the street, and then you just need to get back to the office and really download that and create the maps. So we do believe that actually is really a cost savings to what we had before. I'd rather have my staff focus on other things and get the surveying done by a third party. I think that it has been working extremely well, but I do not have the exact hours, because by each project they change, but I'm happy to share that with you if you need it.
Thank you. I'm just curious.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Manny Langella, aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. All right, great. That ends new business, and on to information and discussion. Item A on information and discussion, potential executive session to discuss Eversource land use easement agreements pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 1-200/2009 and 1-210B10. At this point, we're going to go into executive session. Does everybody have their link for it? Okay.
Hey,
Mr.
George.
Langella,
I do not. If you could send that to me, Chairman.
yes.
George, just a correction for the record. It's the citation of the statute's incorrect. It should be 1-200, open paren 6, close paren, open paren E, close paren. So 1-200/6E, just for the record.
Thank you. Darren,
Mr. Chair, you want a motion to move into executive session?
yes.
I'll
Can
move
I
it.
have a motion? Oh, thank you, Mr. Livingston. And Monique, did you get that correction? And can you correct it for the record?
Yes, I got it.
Great. Let's see. All right, at this point, we're going to go into executive session. Manny, I'm sending this one over to you right now.
So we'll hang up on this call?
We're going to hang up on this call. We're going to go into executive session and then come back to this call once we're completed. So please don't everybody think we're done and end the night. We have to come back and finish the remainder of the agenda, and then we can close out the day. All right, so at this point, we're going to leave the meeting, and I'll see everybody in executive session.